Hello, we're going to look at how to edit a piece of writing. So I've whipped something together and I'm going to give you a few tips on it. The first thing that I would do is I would select everything with Control A and I would make the font larger. So it's going to make it easier. So with that done, we just start to reread our story and we start to look for areas where we can make tweaks, changes, or improvements. So assuming you sort of read the story once before and you know what's going on, this is how you would edit. So Gil squished along with each step he took into the dining hall. Okay. He was so soaking wet, he started to wonder if his suit of armor might be filling up with rainwater. Well, if we said he's soaking wet, we don't really need the extensive modifier of so I'm going to take that out. He was soaking wet and he started to wonder if his suit of armor might be filling up with rainwater. I might even consider taking out that he was so soaking wet. He could just put in there, he started to wonder if his suit of armor might be filling up with rainwater. Because the next sentence then explains the storm that he had interrupted. Let's do that. There we go. We try to tighten things up, especially with my writing. It gets a bit wordy or verbose. I know, shocking, right? He started to wonder if the suit of armor might be filling up with rainwater. The storm that had interrupted his afternoon of training was like a beast looking for a meal. It tromped into their small village, knocked everything over, but it would soon be gone. So I like this part of writing here because it's descriptive. It uses a simile, describing the storm as being like a beast, but it also defines that Gil lives in a small village. As we know, he wears a suit of armor. We should be building a picture in the reader's mind now that he's kind of like a knight in an old-timey village. There would soon be plenty to clean up by the time the first yawning stretches of dawn appeared. There would be plenty to clean up. There would be plenty to clean up. We could maybe think about fixing that. Lots of cleanup would be needed by something like that. Just something to consider. Yet Gil didn't look at any of the cracked windows or leaking ceiling beams. There were ghosts in Castle Windkeep. I might put in a paragraph right there. I think it's about time. Here we've got him wet and we've got him like with the storm. We're talking about something else now. We're talking about ghosts, so that probably needs its own paragraph. There were ghosts in Castle Windkeep, and Gil was determined to catch them. Finally, it's a really good opening sentence for a paragraph as well. As he walked around the corner, he could hear giggling. The ghosts always started up a party when the storm hit, because they didn't think others would hear them over the thunder and hail. So that's the main part of my story, is that it's about ghosts partying when the storms hit, because they can hide from the sound. Now we have the sentence here, as he walked around the corner, he could hear giggling. I actually don't like that sentence, so I'm going to delete it. Because one of the things I want us to recognize when we edit is sometimes we just delete stuff. It's okay. We don't need to always build on more. Sometimes it's getting that first draft out and realizing, oh, we can shorten this. The ghosts always started a party when the storm hit because they didn't think others would hear them over the thunder and hail. The mess from the deceased apparitions, just another way of saying ghosts, was nearly always worse than what the sky threw down at them, so Gil had finally had enough. He kicked open the door to the dining room and found a dozen phantoms sitting down to a refined meal. There's something interesting here. He kicked open the door to the dining room. But here we have Gil squished along with each step he took into the dining hall. We might want to change that to each step he took towards the dining hall. All right, he kicked open the door of the dining room and found a dozen phantoms sitting down to a refined meal with pinky fingers. Now, we've gone from describing the ghosts to him taking action. I think we need a new paragraph, don't you? Notice how we sort of scan around and we think of the sentence before and after while we're editing. It's not just one word, but it needs to become a bit of a whole flow. So he kicked the door open and he found a dozen phantoms sitting down to a refined meal with pinky fingers out. They mimed sipping tea and chatting about the events of the day in a mock exhilarated and breathless way. So I tried to paint the picture for the reader's mind's eye. Funny, when Gil thought about it at a moment, because ghosts couldn't breathe, so perhaps everything they said was in a breathless tone. The ghost stopped and turned to the door, a series of circular mouths pretending to be shocked. You knew I was coming, didn't you? Gil asked. No, we downright hoped you'd join us, O brave knight, said one of the ghosts, a tall woman with a shield strapped to her back. Okay, I'm starting each time we change the speaker, we start a new paragraph, so that's been set up correctly already. We've got some dialogue now, so we're using some different punctuation, so that's pretty handy. Now here we have Gil talk, and then we have the tall woman talk. And notice here I don't write who speaks, because we can assume if it's Gil and the woman, and we start a new paragraph, it must be Gil again. You aren't afraid of me? Laughter answered his question. He stepped further into the dining room, glaring suspiciously around the room as if a trap could await him at any turn. Now I've got him stepping into a dining room and glaring suspiciously around the room. I might just say he stepped forward. We already know he's in the dining room, so we can sort of shorten that, glaring suspiciously around the room, and then we don't repeat the word room, as if a trap could await him at any turn. Yes, come in, join us, the woman said. We've saved you a seat. So I've got her dialogue around the description of who's talking, so that's okay to do sometimes. It sometimes shows that there's a bit of a pause between the two lines. Why would you do that? He asked, his hand moving to his sword's handle out of habit. The woman patted the seat and smiled. Strangely, Gil found himself drawn to the seat next to her. He moved slowly, like honey dripping, and no one said a word as they waited for him to finally come to rest amongst their dinner party. This is a whole paragraph basically of Gil sitting down. So I need to have a big think. Do I want to use a whole paragraph about a man sitting down at a table? Now, it is about him sitting slowly, so if the reader has to go slow to read it, it draws the experience out, so it might be building tension. But if it doesn't actually effectively build tension, I should probably cut a lot of it out. But that's something to think about. Gil, said the woman, we would love it if you'd tell us your tale. Which one? Gil puffed out his chest, for he'd been on many adventures, and each of them worthy of an audience. He turned his head to look around the room, giving each face a moment before settling back on the woman who still met him with her somewhat solemn smile. Story of your death, Gil. Gil paused, confused, until the cloud lifted from his brain and he could see back in time just 7 days. There had been an alarm sounded on the south wall. He'd leaped upon his horse and had been the first one there. The dragon wanted the castle's tower as a new home, and Gil did what he was supposed to do. It was the most heroic act he'd ever committed, but the greatest heroism often comes with a price. Gil remembered his death, but he could no longer feel it. For that he was grateful. Is it going to feel different being one of you? Gil asked. I've used asked a bit. I could say Gil said if I want, so we have to think about our speaking verbs sometimes. Yes, the woman said, her smile never once breaking. It's going to feel even better. And that's the end of the story. Now you can see here I've made some changes. Some of it I've gone through and I've not made too many changes. So I've gone through editing once. I should probably go through and edit again. And maybe this time I can think to myself, am I editing for punctuation? And then go through and look for that. One of the cool things you can do in a Google Doc especially is if you hold Control F, you can find things in a document. I can work out, did I use any quotation marks? Yes, I used 26 instances of quotation marks. Did I use any exclamation marks? None. Could my story benefit from some? Question marks? I used 6, so that's not too bad. So you can go through and check your punctuation and see if you've used a variety of them. I used 35 commas, so that is nice to see, and I've done 34 full stops, so I can see that I have written quite a lot of sentences. These are some strategies that I would use when editing my story, so I hope that you find them handy. Sometimes you might change a sentence, sometimes you might change a word, sometimes you might add in a little something, sometimes you might delete a whole lot of something, but overall what you want to do is make your story better. So have a think about, are you trying to make it more exciting? Are you trying to make it sadder? Are you trying to make it more descriptive to build an image in the reader's mind? And are you checking for errors? And if you do all of those things, I'm certain that your story is going to come out really great, and we look forward to seeing the final finished polished version. So good luck editing and have fun.